In the 1970s, Canada established a supply management system as a means of ensuring stable markets by controlling the supply of dairy. It was built on a system of quotas that allowed quota holders, like licensed dairy producers, to produce a set quantity of milk. The price for that milk was then established at a wholesale level and set by provincial boards. Whenever the price of dairy increased, producers of dairy related products like butters and cheese would see their products increase while dairy producers would remain unaffected. To maintain this artificial bubble of pricing, the Canadian government had kept out competitively priced dairy products from other countries, such as the United States. The current problem surrounding dairy surfaced with the invention of diafiltered milk, which is milk that has been filtered through a membrane in order to target its protein content. Its high protein content is used primarily by dairy processors in Canada to make cheese because it produces higher yields while making less waste. Dye-filtered milk was invented after the original NAFTA agreement in 1990. So Americans, up until that point, after that, would export this product tariff-free to Canada. This changed in 2016 when Canada barred U.S. export dye-filtered milk from entering tariff-free, as farmers, particularly those in Quebec, argued that this American product was displacing Canadian milk sales and putting their operations at risk. The response from the Canadian government infuriated the United States, as well as President Trump, which then prompted the new NAFTA negotiation.
Before the USMCA deal, Canadian dairy farmers were concerned about the discussions regarding dairy. Opening up their Canadian dairy system risks a net loss of $2.1 to $3.5 billion of Canada's GDP, and approximately 24,000 jobs were to be affected.
The Americans claim to have been unfairly taxed when exporting their dairy products to Canada. They aren't even able to export dairy ingredients like dye-filtered milk without tariffs. So they're going to be looking for a new and fair deal in this next round of negotiations.
Honestly, we're not happy about this. First of all, there's going to be more U.S. products on the shelves, which are going to, take away our shelf space, which we earned. And more importantly, you can't separate farming from Canada. It's deeply embedded in our culture, especially in places like Atlantic Canada in particular, where it's very crucial there. And we really hope that the leaders can see this in the next round of negotiations, how important the Canadian dairy farm is to us.
The Canadians have been unfairly restricting American profits in Canada for years now. The US has a quota of only 3.25% of Canada's dairy market, and if we exceed that quota, we get slapped with tariffs of up to 300%. That's absolutely ridiculous. You cannot have a closed market like Canada restricting imports, while at the same time, with their excess milk products, they're dumping it in other countries at a lesser price. In terms of Class 7, Canada's recently developed pricing policy for milk protein concentrates. It has reduced our milk exports to Canada at the same time when U.S. milk prices are low and the country's markets are oversupplied. We need a new deal. There's no way we can go on with this current state.
Under the new USMCA deal, American dairy farmers' access to the Canadian market grew from 3.25% up to 3.6%. This means Canadians will be seeing more American milk, cheese, butter, and other dairy products in their supermarkets. Estimates suggest this will increase dairy exports to Canada by $70 million. The latest trade deal allowing more U.S. milk to pour into Canada has sparked a rallying cry to buy Canadian dairy. The concerns come from not only dairy farmers upset about losing their market share, but also from many Canadian consumers who are pledging their support on social media to the Canadian dairy farmers. It also agreed to end Class 7, which prohibited America from exporting milk ingredients products like dye-filtered milk into Canada tariff-free. The end of Class 7 means that producers of dairy products like cheese manufacturers can now use American dairy for their own products as opposed to solely Canadian.
This is a big win for the United States. Our Wisconsin dairy farmers will no longer be restricted to such small access to the Canadian markets. Class 7 was finally removed, which really helps our producers able to export dairy ingredients to Canada without ridiculously high tariffs. And for the Canadians, I don't see a reason why they should be upset. Even the farmers. The USMCA is good for Canadian farmers, in fact. It preserves tariff-free access to the US market for Canadian ranchers and grain farmers. And it maintains their supply management of dairy, eggs, and poultry. Not to mention, I know Canadians will be happy with our exceptional dairy products. Americans should be proud of this deal, including farmers, as the free market continues to thrive again.
I don't really know what to say. Justin Trudeau says compensation is going to come. We don't know when. and what form it's going to come. We don't know if it's going to help us, especially in the long run, because we've lost so much of our market. You know what? If this deal's not even ratified yet, we have to promote our buy local ads. That's what we got to do. And you know what? Let me show you some of my friends. Look at this. Support Canadian dairy farmers. Buy Canadian. I will not buy US #dairy. I will support #Canadian farmers. That's what it's all about. Support your Canadian dairy farmers.